Welcome back. In this video, we'll look at confidence and risk objections. These sound like, I'm not sure this would work for us. I've been burned before. How do we know this will actually deliver? What if this doesn't work? These objections don't come from disinterest. They come from uncertainty. The prospect believes the problem is real, but they're not confident the solution is safe. Your job is not to reassure them. Your job is not to promise outcomes. Your job is to understand where the risk feels highest. Let's walk through it. Step 1, acknowledge. You keep this simple. Okay, that makes sense. I hear that. No defensiveness, no overconfidence. Then you pause. That pause matters because rushing to reassure actually increases perceived risk. Step 2, clarify the risk. Now you clarify. Not to convince, but to locate the uncertainty. Here are a few clean questions. Just listen first. Okay. Can you help me understand what feels most uncertain right now? What part of this feels riskiest to you? When you say you're not sure it would work, what are you most worried about? Notice what these questions do. They don't argue with the concern. They don't promise success. They invite specificity. Now your turn. Say this slowly. Okay. What part of this feels riskiest to you? Again, slower. Okay. What part of this feels riskiest to you? Good. Here's another one. Okay. When you think about this not working, what does that look like? Again, calm authority. Okay. When you think about this not working, what does that look like? Good. When they answer, you're listening for one of three things. Fear of repeat failure. They tried something similar before and it didn't work. Fear of personal exposure. If this fails, they're the one accountable. Or fear of disruption. Change itself feels risky, even if the current situation isn't working. Each one points to a different decision. This is where many reps go wrong. They hear uncertainty and respond with confidence. They reassure, they promise, they oversell certainty. That usually backfires. Because confidence from you does not remove risk for them, understanding does. A quick clarification before we move on. You may have seen risk objections handled by stacking proof, adding guarantees, or overwhelming the prospect with reassurance. We're not doing that here. Not because proof doesn't matter, but because reassurance without clarity feels like pressure. Risk objections aren't asking, can you convince me? They're asking, do you understand what could go wrong? So we clarify first, then decide. Here's a clean example of what this sounds like in practice. The prospect says, I'm just not sure this would work for us. You respond calmly, okay, can you help me understand what feels most uncertain about it? They explain. You listen, then you clarify. Okay, is that uncertainty more about whether it would deliver results or how disruptive it would be to try? They answer. At that point, the risk is usually clear. If the concern is reasonable and can be clarified calmly, you may explain one relevant point that reduces uncertainty. Not everything, just one. Okay, based on what you shared earlier, this is the part that helps with one specific problem you agreed matters. If that problem isn't a priority to solve, it may not make sense to continue. Then you pause. You're not justifying the risk. You're checking for fit. No pressure, just clarity. If the risk feels too high for them, you don't push. You respect it. Step 3, decide what to do. Once you understand the risk, you decide. Option 1, continue. You continue when the uncertainty is specific, the risk is acceptable, and the problem still matters. This might sound like, based on what you've said, does it make sense to explore this a bit further? No promises, no pressure. Option 2, park it. You park the conversation when the concern is real, but confidence isn't there yet. That might sound like, okay, that makes sense. It may be worth pausing until this feels clearer. Calm, professional. Option 3, exit. You exit when the risk feels too high, the confidence gap is too large, or the prospect isn't ready for change. Exiting might sound like, based on that, it may not make sense to move forward right now. That's not a failure. It's respect for their situation and your time. One final reminder. Confidence objections aren't resistance, they're caution. You don't reduce risk by promising certainty. You reduce it by understanding what matters. Clarify the risk, then decide. In the next video, we'll wrap up Module 5 and bring all objection types together into a single calm decision-making approach. When you're ready, continue to the Module 5 wrap-up.